Do you know how to create congruence in yourself and your clients? Listen into today's podcast as I speak with certified birth healing specialist and occupational therapist and owner of the Wild Orange Tree, Janelle Gullan, as we discuss congruence. Janelle shares how what she has learned at the Institute for Birth Healing has changed her practice, including some cases where her advanced skills have made a huge difference with her clients. Hello, friends. This is Lynn Schulte, and you are listening to the Birth Healing Summit podcast. We are here for meaningful conversations that will transform the way you work with pregnant and postpartum clients. Whether it is a new perspective, tool, or technique, you'll be able to implement it into your practice today. I invite you to sit back, listen with an open mind, and grab the golden nugget today's guest has to offer. Now let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode. Today I have with me Janelle Gullan. Janelle is an occupational therapist down in Melbourne, Australia. And back 5 years ago, it's been 5 years, Janelle. Do you believe that?
Can't.
Yeah, I know, right? We were just talking about it. She had a 2-year-old at the time, and now she's 7. But Janelle reached out to me and invited me to come down to Australia to teach. And you actually were so generous. You opened up your home and you actually hosted the course in your home. And you were the hostess with the mostess. I just so remember how beautifully you just welcomed all of us into your home, and you had beautiful snacks, and you just did such a beautiful job. So I'm so grateful for that experience. And it was so fun to see the kangaroos in your backyard.
I remember those times we'd be running out the back going, they're there, Lynn, come and have a look.
Oh, it was so fun. And we even had some practitioners come over from New Zealand, and it was just such a lovely, lovely group of practitioners. So I'm extremely grateful to you, Janelle, for hosting that and for making that happen. So Janelle and I were talking, and I was reaching out to her because I was like, how has this work impacted your practice in learning what you did? Because you learned the pregnancy and postpartum, and then you also took the advanced course online. And so our conversation today is just going to be using this work in your practice. So tell us, how has what you've learned from the Institute for Birth Healing impacted your practice?
Yeah. I think my really big reflection as an occupational therapist, we have these models that explore how our being influences our doing. OTs are about helping people do the everyday things that they need and want to do, and what is happening on the inside has a massive impact on that. And many, many years ago, when I first heard about your work, I just had this profound mic drop kind of moment with that realization how hard it is to mother if the body thinks it is birthing. So this is all the beautiful work that you do around the open birthing pattern, and was just like, wow, if the internal state, that being state of the body, is still open and birthing, no wonder it can feel really hard to move into that phase of actually mothering and caring for the child and the co-occupations and everything that I'm really passionate about in my work. So that was really the starting point that brought me in. But as I've progressed through the advanced course and the certification as well, it's just continually been this journey of different tools and different ideas and incredible examples in the mamas and the women who come to see me around how this internal state of being so significantly impacts our outward doing and how we're able to show up in the world. And your work has given me some incredible tools to help bring that consistency between the inner and the outer, that doing and that being, and then being able to see the difference that that makes for people in their lives.
So that's so interesting that you say it in that way, because the most common comments that I get after a birth or after a session is, number one, oh, I feel so different in my body.
Yeah.
But I would hear from people who were referred by their friends, and there's like, oh, you changed her life. You changed my friend's life. That's why I'm here. And
Yes. I
right?
hear it too. It's like, no pressure.
Yeah, right. But that, I mean, that wasn't really my intent, was to go and change
Yeah,
someone's life, really. Like,
yeah,
all I did was help them to heal from that birth and
yeah,
help their body to recover from the intensity of
yeah.
birth. But yet it is so impactful. So do you have some examples
Mm.
or some cases that you would love to share with us, case studies?
Yeah, no, love to. Now, first, I want to comment about that idea of changing my life. And like, that sounds really profound and huge, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I really think what people are connecting with is that sense of congruence. Like, when we have the incongruence, there is so much tension and there's this push and pull, there's this unsettledness, this ungroundedness. And so, when we come to a place of congruence, whatever that means for that individual person and their birth experience or other life experiences, that congruence feels so significantly different, hence the change my life. I think that's actually what people are referring to. So that's quite an in-depth
And
analysis of
yeah,
that,
and so
the congruence.
well, I'd like for us to explore so people truly understand, what do you mean by that incongruence then? I know it's the
Mm.
doing and the being, but what does that really mean?
I see it when the story that is living in the tissues in the body is different to the story that is living in the headspace.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Say that again.
It's when the story that is living in the tissues and in the structure of the body is different to the story that is living in the headspace.
Wow. Or their outer life, right? Like
Or
if,
their outer life. Yeah.
right, like I've got this baby I'm taking care of, but
Yeah.
yet my body still feels like I'm birthing.
Yes.
That's the
That's the
incongruence.
classic example, isn't
Right.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that, and it's so interesting how that can shift and change. And I'm sure we'll dive into this, but how it can really change the relationship from the mom and the baby, or,
Yeah.
for the mom and the baby in that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, enormously, enormously so. There's so many tentacles that reach out
Yes.
from that
Yeah.
congruence or incongruence, and
Yeah.
I'll use the words. It shows up in occupational performance and participation, and all of these things that OTs are very passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So tell us some, what did you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I've just got a whole lot of different examples that perhaps we can just explore. Some of the people that really stick in my mind about when these shifts have happened and when that congruence has come into place. I can think of one mum who came to see me. I'd seen her in pregnancy, and it was a few months later. She was reporting really tender inner thighs and a lot of pulling through her pubic bone. And she'd seen other practitioners for massage and trying to release and everything like that. And it might work for a little bit, but usually it was really painful and these symptoms would come back straight away. And she just walked into the room and just said, I know this is about my birth and we need to work it out. It's like, okay, you've actually got this, knowing that there's an incongruence sitting in
Yeah.
the body here. And so just as we sat with the tissues and we created space to come up whatever needed to come up there was actually a really big part about being able to speak up. She realized how silenced she had felt in that birth. So during that session, there was opportunities to actually use her voice and let that flow come out through her mouth. But we did a one of the birth energy reviews just to see what happened next. What did you need? And the way that her imagination came in, she actually had the exact same scenario. She had the forceps birth that she'd experienced, but we went through it and we did it really slowly. And the
Wow.
obstetrician was telling her at each point, I'm putting this in now. I'm moving my hand here. This is what
Yeah.
I'm seeing. Are you ready to go? Do you need any? We just slowed it down. I think this stuck out for me because sometimes in those situations, mamas run out of the hospital and they imagine going down and birthing their baby with deer in the wilderness or something so completely opposite to what they experienced. But this mama just needed it slowed down and explained, let her body feel she could go at the pace that she needed. And we brought that baby through, still with the forceps, but really gently. Baby was placed up on her chest. and the whole tissues and the pubic bone just went, ah,
Right. Oh my gosh. So funny. You kind of your screen kind of got unfuzzy as you did that. Ah, it was like perfect timing. If you guys are watching this on video, you'll be able to see that. But that was so interesting, the timing of that. But Janelle, what I want to say about that is that when a birth is traumatic or experienced as traumatic, the body experiences things 10 times slower than the mind.
yes,
And that's why when you replayed that at a slower pace, we're able to get the body caught up and
yes.
able to
It's the
process
congruence, isn't
it.
it?
Yes, exactly.
Congruence in the
Exactly.
body and congruence in the headspace.
Yeah, but that slowing things down, because there's a lot of bursts. I always ask my clients, I'm like, so, like, oh, it was really fast. And then I'll ask them the question,
Mhm.
did it feel too fast for your body? And if the answer is yes, then I know I need to really help the body to
Mm,
replay it like you did in that slower
yeah,
manner and help the tissues to catch up in a way. So
yeah.
yeah,
And I see
beautiful.
that as well, not even if a birth on paper looks traumatic, like some of the, like, could be a home birth or at a birth
Oh,
center where
yeah.
it's just like wham, bam, babies come through. And some people go,
Right.
oh, wow, that would be so amazing. And the mum's just in shock. And it's like,
Right. Yeah.
we actually have to slow down this incredible, beautiful physiological birth
Yeah.
so that the
Yeah.
body and the head space find that
Well,
congruence between what actually happened too.
yeah, I don't feel a lot of moms because there's so many comments that moms get after their birth and after they share their birth story from other moms, who had 42-hour labors, and they're like,
Yes.
oh, you're so lucky. But their body is gone. What the heck just happened to me? It was too fast for the body. And that's why, yeah, whether we label it traumatic or not, a lot of these moms don't recognize it as traumatic. They just
Mm,
recognize it as really fast, and everyone's telling them how lucky they should be. But yeah,
yes.
it's too much. It was too much, too fast for the body
Yes.
and the
Yes.
tissues to be able to
Yes.
process it. So
Yes.
yeah, such an important point. Thank you for sharing that one.
And I think it also flows in really nicely, this idea of too much too fast. I've also seen a lot of people that they'll go, oh yes, I've had some internal release work done before, or they've checked out my pelvic floor muscles internally and I didn't really do anything. And I just keep planting the seed because so often, like the way that you teach this, the internal work and the way that I've come to it as well, is sometimes those assessments can be too much too fast too soon. And when we actually
Absolutely.
do that in a way that is really slow, and maybe we just rest at the entry and we just breathe and we wait for the body to go, I'm giving permission now, it feels okay for that internal touch. And then we just sit with the tissues, not to poke and prod and
Yeah.
check strength or movement or anything like that. It's just being with. I think that is another really beautiful strategy that can help identify where we're lacking that congruence as
Oh,
well. But in the actual assessment, I've had so many people go, oh, I've had internal treatment before, but it never felt like that. And I don't think it's because of anything particularly special that I'm doing. It's just that resonance, like Tammy Kent talks about resonance in the body and between the person and the practitioner. And there's so many components of that so closely links in with that too much, too fast, too soon. Like our best intentions can actually create an incongruence in the body and not allow us to get into those deeper things that are sitting within the tissues that are actually making a difference to what's happening in regard to pelvic function or what's actually happening in how that person feels in their body as well. So a little bit of a different topic, but it feels so
I
aligned.
love it. Love it because it is. And it's so important that I love that you're talking about that we need to take it slowly and gently and really let the person we need to match the body, match the
Yeah.
person and where they're at when we do intravaginal work. And I think as practitioners, a lot of times we're not even aware of that because we're too worried about the clock and how much time we have left in our sessions, and that we really need to get this assessment done. We really need to see what's going on in there. And, and it's our agenda versus the body's agenda and what the body really needs. And that is so incredibly important, especially for anyone who has experienced trauma in this area. And anyone going through IVF has been traumatized. And we all know that there are so many people who are dealing with abuse, whether it's sexual or verbal or emotional. It all gets held in that pelvic space. And we need to be able to know how to respectfully work with those tissues. So I am so grateful that you brought that point up, Janelle, because it's so important for all of us to hear that, that going slow. And I know I'm biased, but I love the way I teach that entering into the pelvic space, because the way I teach it, there's so many check-in points with the person to make sure that they're on board. Okay, here's my touch way up by your knee, and are you okay? And one time I had one client who I got to there and I'm like, she's not okay with this. So I had to stop, right? But I'm so glad that I stopped there and not like when I got to the vaginal tissues and they're all freaking out. And the other thing that I really love is the energetics of just placing your finger pad right at the opening of the vagina and waiting for it to get sucked in. Isn't that so cool? It's like, because there's been one time I put my finger there and I was just like, I'm getting pushed out. Okay, I missed all the signs there. I'm no longer doing this, but being able to listen for the pull in then you have the body on board. So important. Thank you for sharing that.
And I think as well, once we're in, that doesn't mean that we've got full green lights ahead as well. I think when we're thinking about consent and what the body is letting us know, like it could be that we've done some significant things in that pelvic bowl space, and then we check in and we go, hey, the body's done, like this is now a no and I need to come out. So it's not just that checking in, we're in, okay, let's go. It's continuing to check in through that process as well, and knowing that a no could come up at any particular time, and that's okay.
Such an important point. Wow. Janelle, how do you sense that no? What do you feel, or how do you know it's a no?
Oh, there's so many different things. I think something that sits really beautifully here in these ways of knowing, that was actually something I had down as something we could talk about, and it's relevant for that no as well as other things. Something I've really resonated with, Kimberly Ann Johnson in her book Call of the Wild, she talks about these channels that our body runs on, and she uses the TIMES acronym. Is that something that you've come across, the TIMES acronym?
Yes, I've read it in her book. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so TIMES is just an acronym to remember these 5 different ways that we can receive information. So T is for thoughts, I is for images, so I include things like colors, visualizations, anything that's imagery in that regard, that's I. M is for movements, so it might be an actual sense of wanting or needing to move or needing stillness, or maybe it's that flow of energy that you're sensing as movement in the body. E is for emotions, and then S is for sensations. And I love how Kimberly talks about the fact, like, I sort of think of the old TV that my parents had in their house, those brown boxes, and you actually had the flick dial. And often we've got a channel that we tend to sit on, like thoughts can be a really powerful channel that a lot of people have great reception for. But I actually experience those things through the channels. Like sometimes it's just a sensation that you feel in the body. Maybe it's like this prickly sensation, or maybe there's a warmth building up there and you're going, oh, something's going
Something's a
on
brewing.
here.
Yeah.
Things are brewing. Sometimes it might be the movement. So it might be that sucking in or invitation in, or it might be the pushing out. I think of that as movements. As a practitioner, I find that I'll sometimes just get intuitive hits of visualization. So some kind of image, and that imagery might be a really clear, hey, there's protection going on here, and this, we've got to check in and see what the person needs to bring their body back to safety here. Or you might just get that word, that thought, or an emotion. I think it's this, and then we can check in and see if that resonates in any way with the person. But yeah, I feel like that's a really useful thing to check in. Am I getting things across those different streams? And then talking to the person about what they're noticing in that body. Like, I love that question. What are you noticing right now?
Yeah.
And I always tell people that nothing is a perfectly acceptable answer. You don't need to
Good.
make something up just because
Yes.
I've asked. But yeah, what are you noticing right now? We're just going to pause. And again, I think it comes back to congruence. I'm noticing something here. What are you noticing here? Can we make sure we're on the same page? What needs to happen here so that we both know your body's in safety? Is it time to finish? Is it time to pause? Is it, is there something we can do that would feel right to continue with what we were doing? But yeah, I really love that acronym of being curious about different ways that we might receive information from someone's body, or notice that coming up in our own body through that resonance with theirs. But I found that a really useful tool to talk to the people I work with about, but also use that myself, and sometimes quite consciously change the channel to a different one, going, hey, am I noticing something in that area?
I would say another one that I teach in my birth healing intensive program is your own body's awareness and sensations in your own body. I know my belly, my lower belly will just kind of tighten up when I've encountered, to me, it's trauma in the body, or I sense into the tissue and it's just like, oh, that drop of my belly. So there's sometimes, there's all different kinds of ways that we can tune in to the tissues to know whether it's a yes or a no. And I love, love, love that idea that just because you got the yes to come in doesn't mean you have the yes for the entire time that you plan on being in there. And that there may be a stoppage point at some time, and that we all need to be aware of that is so critically important. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, what other golden nugget do you have for us, Janelle? Because these are all great.
I think something else that really comes to mind, I think one of the most critical tools that we need to learn as practitioners is how to sit with silence.
Oh, yes.
Silence from the mouth, silence from the body, to just be there. Because I think when I've worked with people, some of the most profound things have come out when it's like, we're just going to sit here together and see what happens. And man, sometimes it can feel awkward, like we're, okay, let's move on, or let's have a chat about this, but just sitting in the silence. And again, you'll start noticing things in the tissues, like there might be that little pulse that comes up, or maybe there's some emotion that comes up in that person. Maybe you just start feeling the bones moving, or something softening and responding. But that silence and that comfortableness with the unknown and just being with can be so profound. And again, it's the slowing it down too, isn't it? That's a really common theme coming through here. But anything that we can do to practice just the silence and the being with.
Yes. And that, I was just going to say, that goes back to the beginning of our conversation of the doing versus being, right? And for us to just allow ourselves to be with the tissues without having to say anything or having to do anything, you know? It reminds me of a session I just had today with a client that, I was trying to shear the sacrum, and she's like, that's really tender. And
Mm,
it's usually not tender when
mm,
there's nothing being held in there. And so to me, it was
yeah,
just another reiteration of pain and tenderness tells us there's something more being held in the tissues.
yeah.
And so then all I did was just be with the tissues. And we
Yeah,
both just got curious with that area. And it was
yeah,
really interesting because there was, in just being in that silence, you are able to tune into more of the nuances of what you're feeling in your
mm,
hands. And that's when I was able to go, what was that thought right there? Because I just felt this
yes,
massive shift, right?
yeah,
But it was like she started talking, but it wasn't resonating. And so I was
yeah,
like, wait, did you have a thought before that thought? And she did. And that's what caused the
yeah,
reaction in the tissue.
yeah.
So it's just so cool how the
Uh,
body can guide us in that kind of stuff.
yes. No, I
Isn't that
clearly remember one mum who I worked with. She came to me after her second baby had been born because the second degree tear she'd had with her first was feeling really irritated. Like she'd seen lots of people and they all said, "Oh, your scar looks good," but it certainly wasn't feeling good. It was not necessarily red and raised, but you could tell that there was just this irritation there. And we worked with the pelvis and we made sure everything was closed up and we went through all that usual stuff. We did a little bit of scar tissue massage directly over it. And then we just got to this point where I literally just sat there and held it. And at one point, it felt right to put a hand on her belly, checked in, and she was okay with it. And we just sat with it. And for quite a while, nothing seemed to come up other than just the receiving of that touch.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, some of the details of that first birth just started to play through, and she started to recognize some of the incongruence between how her head had interpreted that and how the body was actually feeling, particularly in light of the fact that the first birth and the second birth were very different. Like the second was exactly what she'd planned for the first.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting with, like, it wasn't the scar tissue massage techniques or well, I'm sure everything contributed to it, but it was just the being with was what actually made a shift. And after just being with that scar, it no longer got irritated on her underwear. It no longer felt heavy at the end of the day. And all I'd done was held it and sat with it. And it sounds so simple, but sometimes that is what the body needs. It is
Yes.
all that it needs, an honoring and a witnessing and a
Yes.
celebration of how incredible that mama's body was and what it did during that
Right.
birth. And when
Yeah.
it feels seen,
Gosh,
it's a
that's so
congruence.
beautiful. So beautiful. I know when I was just holding that my client today, her sacrum, she was like, she's a therapist herself, and she's like, oh, it's something in the subconscious. It's in the
Mm,
unconscious because I'm not aware of it. But even without even knowing what it was, we just were with it and we could
yep.
feel this huge release happening. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I love that we don't always have to figure it out.
We
Like
don't.
you didn't need to know why that scar tissue was the way it was. You just held it. And it really is, you just held it with love. And that
Mm,
intention of just loving on a tissue is so healing because you
yes.
respected it. You weren't forcing it to do something. You weren't making something happen. You were just being with it and
We're just honoring it. Yeah.
honoring it. Yeah, that's that love flowing through. And love is the foundation of all healing, everybody. If you don't know that
It
already,
is. It
love,
is.
it's all about love.
And I think the other beautiful thing that comes from this work is that it allows mamas to bring compassion into their experiences. I think of one person I was working with, and man, like from a physical perspective, there was a lot of tension in those ligaments around the uterus, and slowly we were working around them and getting softening in. And she started talking about how frustrated she was that she'd had some retained placenta after the birth of her first child. And I think the process of getting that out had been fairly traumatic in the body. We was like, why did it get stuck? Like, my stupid body, like, I birthed this baby. Why couldn't I just let go of the placenta? And I just had this intuitive hit, and I said, there's something here about the pregnancy. What was going on in the pregnancy? And she said to me, oh, I actually had ongoing bleeding and threatened miscarriage for the more than half of the pregnancy, and then it settled and was okay. I was like, Mama, your uterus was just holding on to this baby. It wanted to make sure it was safe.
Yeah.
And all the emotion came up, and she went, oh my God, I can see my uterus with compassion
Oh,
around what it was trying to do to look after me, to make sure this baby came into my arms.
yeah.
And I think that ability to, again, bring congruence into the story, the body going, hey, I was trying, I was doing what I thought I need to do. And the head's going, oh, stupid, dumb body, why couldn't you work? It's
Yeah.
bringing this congruence that allows compassion. And again, compassion and love, that is the place where healing and where shifts come from.
Yeah.
And bringing congruence to those stories is a really powerful way to do that.
It reminds me of, again, a client I saw today who, she felt like her baby got stuck coming out.
Mm.
And so she's like, what's wrong with my body? And when she told me that the baby came in like this, with her arm up by her chin, so her fist was
Yeah.
by the baby's chin, I'm like, well, the baby couldn't flex and extend its head like it needed to come through your
Mm.
pelvis. And I
Yeah.
was like, your pelvis is actually okay.
It's pretty incredible. It brought a baby through like
Right,
that.
right, but she really felt like something was broken in there
Yeah.
because her baby got stuck. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
not your body, it's the way the baby chose to come through your body that created the
Yeah.
problem. It's not
Yeah.
your body. And so
Mm.
I think helping, us helping our clients to reframe the
Yes.
situation, right,
Yes.
is what allows that compassion to come in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
having that greater understanding that love and compassion can come in, and now they have a whole new relationship with their body and with
Mm.
what's going on. Yeah.
Enormously so. And I think, unfortunately, so many experience pelvic health care as this process of feeling like their body is broken and that something is
Yeah.
wrong with it. And
Yes.
when we're able to bring this other perspective that allows the compassion and the love, and a mama to go, hey, I'm not broken. Again, that's a really powerful place of being that then
Yes.
allows her to show up more powerfully in her mothering and all those other roles that she plays in her day-to-day life as well.
Absolutely. And I think us bringing this idea that, hey, the pelvis moves to get the baby out, and maybe the bones just haven't come back to their original position.
Yeah.
And I think, the client I was sharing is, she really felt like, she was broken. She didn't know if she could do it again. And I'm like,
Mm.
but now you're getting the help. Like, she's seen other therapists, she's seen other physical therapists and
Mm.
really wasn't getting the results.
Mm.
And she was shocked when she saw me. And in one session, I was able to get her pelvic floor muscles working better, right? Because her bones were out,
Mm.
but there was trauma in there, so like there's like
Yeah.
being able to really address everything that happened in that birth. Because,
Mm.
like you said, it's the incongruence, the body, it's being held in the tissues.
Yeah.
And the body's still stuck back there, but yet now they're caring for this baby. And it's
Mm.
that incongruence that creates so much problems for our clients. And when
Yeah.
we can help them to, not be stuck in that incongruent place and bring them to the present day awareness, that's where the healing, that's where they feel better, right?
Yeah. Enormously so.
Yeah. Janelle, thank you so much. This was amazing, amazing content. Thank you for everything
Always a
you
pleasure.
shared with us today. I'm so, so grateful. I want to do another one, okay? So let's make that happen, okay?
Wonderful. I look forward to it, Lynn. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much. I hope everybody, you really got you taking home two concepts here that were the themes. It seemed like the doing versus being, the incongruence of the body, and taking it slow, slowing it down, and helping our body, or helping our clients to experience, especially our intravaginal work. Absolutely love that point that you brought up, Janelle, is doing it very slow and making sure that the client is connected and with us the entire process. And once you do get the yes to come inside, you don't have that yes forever. So be paying attention to when the body might be saying no again. So incredibly important. Thank you so much for your time, Janelle, and we will do this again, okay? Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening in, and here's to smoother births and faster recoveries. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Today's podcast was brought to you by the Institute for Birth Healing. To discover more, visit instituteforbirthhealing.com. To claim $50 off of any online course, use coupon code podcast50 at checkout. Till next time, I'm Lynn Schulte, founder of the Institute for Birth Healing.